My name is David Sanchez. I'm 23 years old, and here at Street Poets, we like to introduce ourselves with our own poetry. So, this poem I wrote is called If You Knew Me. If you knew me, you would know. My father was a crack addict until liquor took its place. He used to come home late and diss mama in her face. My mother worked long hours to support his habit until one day she had it and booted him out. My role model was gone, and all I knew was his route. I started smoking and drinking, shot my first gun without thinking, banging on city walls all the way to juvenile hall. Then I saw my first body drop. My heart stopped this original beat. Fear replaced by heat turned me into a numb human. For a while, I couldn't cry. My feelings died, only to be revived in jail. Life without bail, but they left out a nail in my concrete coffin. My little brothers often saw me as their pops because I was all they knew. Soon enough, they started drinking brew and smoking marijuana too. I cried in my cell before I went to sleep. In this wicked world I was in too deep, dealing with my own demons. I questioned my old reasons for living and started forgiving myself for what I felt. Change came in waves. I found a way to write and read to help my heart maintain. I saw my mother cry and bleed, so I wanted to express that pain. My spirit was set free when I wrote my first poem. I know you can hear me. Now I can see clearly. Pen in my hand demanding the truth from what lies buried in my youth.
And that's huge. Like these people were like us. We have full-time jobs. We have fly to Colorado, and we have to come back to work on Monday. It's hard work, man. It's like we fly in Sunday night real late. It's like, oh, we got to get up and go to work, you know. And sometimes we're here rehearsing till 1 or 2 in the morning, and we got to go to work the next day, and then we got to get ready for our show. And it's hard work, but it pays off. When you see young people, they write to you or they've gone to college and they're like, hey, we want to bring you guys up here. You know, I saw you when I was in middle school and now I'm at Stanford. I want to fly you guys out here. I mean, dude, Luis, I'm telling you, I never imagined any of this would happen because that was never our intention. It was just like, hey, what can we do for the community? It wasn't to be famous. None of that ever crossed our mind. It still doesn't cross our mind. It's just like, what can we give back? A little bit of comedy, a little bit of political satire, a little bit of self-esteem, a little bit of mentoring. When we all finish performing, at the end, we all talk about, hey, you know, Claudia, she's a therapist. She has her master's from here. Alicia, she has a women's studies master's. You know, Yari, she graduated from Long Beach State. Jose is a teacher. Mike is a lawyer. I graduated from UCSD. For young people to like watch us and think, oh, these people are real funny, but they're not just funny, they're freaking educated.
Yeah. So what happened is I used to, didn't know how to speak Spanish, and you were being punished in school for speaking Spanish. I didn't know how to speak at all because they weren't teaching us good English. So what happened is I started to read books. I love books, and that helped me a lot. I would go to libraries on my own, even all choloed out, and the librarians would be watching me, or the guards would be following me to make sure I didn't steal anything. And I remember I was homeless real briefly downtown LA, and I was in the streets, and I was using heroin, and I was mugging people, and I was just trying to survive, staying in different places every night. But the library was my refuge. I love those books. So I remember one time I was in juvenile hall, and also when I was in jail when I was early on, about 15, 16 years old, I started to write in jail. It was like me just putting down my thoughts. It wasn't no big deal, but it was the beginnings. And because I was reading all these great books like the autobiography of Malcolm X, you know, James Baldwin, Perry Thomas, you know, Claude Brown, all these great writers, African American mostly, they made me think that maybe I could tell them what I knew, my story, the barrio story. And little by little, I was putting together little anecdotes. And again, I was in jail, juvenile hall, and then when I got a moment and I got back, I ended up living in my garage in a small little room, and I found my dad's old typewriter, which didn't work very well, but I used it, and I was like this, and I started to type stories there in my barrio, even there in my little room, even when I was on drugs. I would get out and start typing. It was really weird. The beginnings of a writer was happening right there. The seed was being planted.
And tell us about Tia Chuchas. Like, what was, why did you open up Tia Chuchas, and what's the story behind that?
Well, you know, because I think East LA exploded with all these arts and music and dance and everything. I had that as an experience, and in the late 70s, I got involved with the Chicano movement in East LA, more active, but more arts related. I had an office of self-help graphics. I even helped start an art gallery in performance space in Echo Park called Galeria Ocaso. That experience was giving me a little bit more like maybe we can make institutions, we can make something happen, we can own buildings, we can do something. And then when I went to Chicago for 15 years, I got active in the poetry scene there, in the art scene. I helped start a couple of arts organizations, including the Guild Complex. And then what happened is we got a building at one point where there was a cafe, there was a basement with a performance space, there was a theater, 300, it's like 200-seat theater, and it taught me what's possible. So when I moved back to LA in the year 2000, we moved to the San Fernando Valley, the Northeast Valley, where my wife Trini grew up. She grew up in Pacoima, which is another poor Mexican migrant community, housing projects, gangs, a lot of violence. But what we found is that this area was culturally barren. There was really nothing going on. East LA at least had a little bit of life, you know. There was nothing happening. So with my brother-in-law, my wife Trini, and myself, we decided to create this space, taking what I learned from East LA, from Chicago, and bringing it in Tia Chuchas. Tia Chuchas became a culture center that had a cafe, it had performance space, had art gallery, it had workshops, and it had a bookstore, all in one. And it became very important and popular because now there's a renaissance of the arts in this part of the valley. We have a mural mile now. There's murals being painted on Van Nuys Boulevard in Pacoima that a lot of artists who stepped up on their own came up and created this. We have bands now. We have all these great theater, possibilities of theater. We have you know, the Celebrating Words Festival, which brings in musicians and poets and spoken word and all kinds of communities. So I think we established ourselves as a place where the arts can flourish when nobody thought it was possible.
And you know, based on your experience, Luis, what's the best way to work with young people that are angry, that are hurting? What's the best way to approach them?
Well, I call it drawing out their own beauty and their own intelligence that they already have. Somebody did that with me, and I do it from my own experience. What happened with me? How was I a heroin user, and I shot people, I stabbed people, I was arrested for attempted murder. At 16, I was in a murderer's row. I was in all this very trouble, but yet somehow I was able to go from trauma to transformation, and the arts were in there. So using my own experience, I thought, well, how am I gonna help these kids? So for 35 years, I've been going to prisons and juvenile halls. For 40 years, I've been working with gang youth, trying to change their life. And I've incorporated the arts because I found that the arts are powerful. They're healing. They're also help somebody can tell their story and the different ways their stories can be told through all the arts. It's important that they get validated. It's how they have an initiatory experience in this world without getting shot or killed for it, you know. To me, the arts are a vital part of humanity because I don't think you're fully human until you're a full artist. There's something about being an artist that really taps into all your humanity. So it's like my friend, I have a great friend, Michael Mead, says, if you don't draw out the beauty in our youth, sometimes that beauty, that what they carry inside them becomes violent. And I think the way to deal with violence and suicide and drug addictions is to get them to be more expressive with words, with painting, with song, with theater, with all these things, to just be out there and creative and feel that they can shape the world with their own hands. That gives them a power that allows them to think of the world as a place that they do have power.
Writing gave me a sense of freedom that gangbanging didn't give me. It made me feel like I was understood. Like I could tell somebody with a pen and the pad, you know, what I was really feeling inside. Like that boy that was really scared, afraid to face the streets. I felt like when I was gangbanging or I was with my homeboys that I kind of had to put this facade on that that I was hard or that I was, cold. And when in reality, that's not at all what was going through my mind. Gangbanging took a lot from me. It took away a piece from me that to this day I'm still trying to reclaim. It wounded me pretty hard. And not just me, but my family. And I feel like writing gave me that healing, that medicine, that that gangbanging didn't, you know, and I feel like if it weren't for writing, I probably wouldn't be alive because I would be expressing myself in the old ways, like when I was in gangbanging, through anger, through hurting other people, or getting over them. And I feel like writing, it broadened my horizon. It opened me up to another level of myself that I didn't know that was there, and it really helped me reflect, be more passionate, and more forgiving of myself and others. And writing, that's what writing did for me. It was just a lot of reflection and a lot of thinking. Yeah. So, how has writing helped me?
Yeah, yeah.
So, writing's helped me express myself, express the pain and the wounds that haven't been healed. It's helped me take out my anger in a different form. Writing saved my life. Poetry, being able to tell my story so other youths and kids like me, a young man, can relate to and be like, oh, I've been there, I lived that, I know what that feels like. Because that's how I started writing, by listening and to other people who were also writers, and they inspired me, whether it was a song or a poem. And writing's been a tool in my path. It's been an instrument of like healing. The pen and the pad is powerful, what it can do. And that's how it's helped me. It's really opened new doors and a different way, a different lifestyle.